welcome to LearnBytes, the show that delivers bite-sized pieces of wisdom so you can increase your efficiency and productivity, embrace your natural creativity, and lead with impact. I'm Samantha Garrett from Using Technology Better, and joining me on the show today is Helen Palmer. Welcome, Helen.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So Helen is the creator and founder of Self Unlimited, a fresh perspective on how to navigate the world of work. So it's part of Helen's mission to enable people to have a better experience of work, which I totally love.
Too right. Who wouldn't want a better experience of work?
Exactly. That's what totally everyone would. So I don't think I've ever met someone that goes, no, I want a worse experience of work.
Probably they're like, I want out of work and retire easily, but I got some thoughts on that too.
Oh, cool. Well, we may hear them because Helen today is going to share her wisdom on the topic of leadership. But before we get into the questions, Helen, I'd love you to share a bit about yourself, what you're passionate about, and also Helen's got a very unique perspective on leadership for us today, which I'm excited to hear. So maybe you can frame that up a little bit too.
Sure. Passion. I don't have one. I'm really problematic like that. Think of me like a bee that jumps from flower to flower, and when the nectar's flowing, my passion could be whatever that nectar is. But having said that, broadly speaking, that phrase that we just used, having a better experience of work, is definitely where it's at. And that kind of has been something that holds together the narrative of everything I've done from when I first started working at the age 17 until now and working in my own business. And that's both because I've seen people who've been affected by changes going on at work, and it really kind of hits their sense of identity, and it can either lock up their potential or lock up the good energy. And so I love it when people can get unlocked, unblocked, and sometimes it can just be because of a small epiphany, and you see this look on their face like, this could be different. And I'm like, yes, you didn't realize there was a possibility. So whenever I can present somebody with a possibility they didn't consider, or a possibility that's now available to them because something that was blocked or locked up or unrealized is now enabled to come out into the world. And it ties back to, particularly for me, that's in the context of work and having a better experience of work. Sometimes too, for people, back to the leadership thing, their experience of work is, I have a crappy leader. or I don't like the person who's leading me. And research indicates that actually only 1 out of 10 people is the right person to be in leadership. So that suggests there's a large number of people who are not necessarily in the best. And just to flesh out that thought, 3 could get there of the 10 with with a bit of training and mentoring. Another 3 could get there with a lot, and 3 are not the right person to be there at all. Which actually leads into the idea of leadership that I have. That's about leading yourself. Because yes, it's good to have a leader in an organization or a context that you want to follow, but if you're one of those 9 people who's got those 9 leaders who really quite aren't up to par, well, then do you kind of give up or have a terrible experience of work? And I think there's the possibility to think, well, what was I looking for from that leader? Maybe I can get that for myself. Maybe I can create that for myself. So that's the context of leadership and a little bit about my passions.
That is super fascinating, and I'm so glad that you're going to focus on that leading yourself, because I imagine there's some people that are watching and going, oh my gosh, I'm one of those like 9 out of 10 people with a terrible leader. What do I do? It's all hope lost. So
I have some hope for you. I have some hope.
Yay! Cool. I am lucky. I am like one of the 1 in 10 with an amazing leader. So, but I'm very interested to hear. So. All right, so Helen, as you know, the show is all about bite-sized pieces of wisdom, which is really a challenge for us not to talk too much, which is always difficult. But so we're going to put a timer on.
Yes.
4 minutes for 8 questions.
Yep.
If we get through them all, you can shoot me a question at the end. We'll see how we go.
I'm feeling quite competitive now, and a bit of a high achiever, so I'm going to try and get all 8 in 4 minutes.
All right, no, and I'll give you a warning about 30 seconds, whatever is a good time to interrupt.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I'll start it now. I'm going to go over. Are you ready?
Yes, bring it on.
I'll click start. First mobile phone and current phone.
I think it was a Nokia. It was so many years ago now, but now I've got a Samsung Galaxy, and I got it because of the camera, but I wish I had the HTC I had beforehand because it was actually better designed.
What is the most important quality for every leader to have?
Knowing what are your strengths and leading from that point of view of your strengths, owning that, leading into that. You can't be all things to all people, so know who you're going to be and be that.
What do you find most rewarding or challenging about being a leader?
Well, when it's leading others, it's actually recognizing that the actions that I take can actually have a positive or a negative impact on their life. And so the reward is actually seeing when that change happens. When I'm leading myself, it's actually about setting some reasonable expectations. Because as I said, I'm like a high achiever. And so it's kind of like keeping it in some manageable sense of constraint.
What's one thing you tell yourself when facing uncertainty?
I'm going to learn something. I'm not actually unfazed by uncertainty. I always think of it, it's a space of possibility and potentiality.
Oh, I love that, because that just goes so well with the show, because it's really about the concept of learning, and learning being a journey and a lifelong thing, and never not learning, the phrase I love. So that just fits perfectly with that.
Yeah.
You were doing so well. My goodness, we'll have to add more. Biggest leadership lesson learned so far?
The difference between perception and reality, and that people will make choices based on perception rather than reality. And I remember learning this many years ago, where my staff saw me swanning around in the staff club having cups of tea, and they thought I was swanning around, but in fact I was actually having important meetings. But their perception was Helen's slacking off, whereas in fact that wasn't my reality. So actually being clear about what the reality is and closing that gap if people have the wrong perception of what's going on.
Interesting. All right. If there's one person you could spend an hour with, who would it be and why?
Unusual choice, potentially. It's Melinda Gates. This is the wife of Bill Gates. I'm fascinated about how she has been on her own journey, partnered with one of the most, famous and rich people in the world, and what it has been to carve out her own interests and her own identity while also supporting Bill and their foundation and the things they do. And I'm loving the fact that they are more altruistic and thinking about how the funds they have at their disposal can do very powerful things in the world. Good change.
That's really fascinating. We might dig into more of that, but we'll move on for now. Question 7, yay! A minute 23. Book, video, or podcast that you would recommend to others?
It's a book called Let Your Life Speak, and it's by a guy named Parker Palmer, who's no relation to me at all. He's actually a Quaker of the religious belief. And what I love about this book is he talks about the notion of vocation, which comes from the original word about like voice. And so that's what's the voice inside you that wants to express itself in the world. Now, it's a really short book, and it's got some really good wisdom about self-care in there. And I'm often quoting some of his quotes around the idea of the self-care isn't a selfish thing. It's the thing that enables you to express the best version of yourself to help others in the world.
I love that. I hope we'll come back to that. How will you use your leadership skills to make a difference to the world? 35 seconds.
Role modeling myself, particularly with the leading yourself through the self-unlimited idea, because as I said before, it's about unlocking other people's potential and liberating them to have that better experience of work. So as much as I can, put the message out in the world and be a role model of actually living that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. You said you've got 15 seconds. You can either ask me a question or elaborate on any of the answers.
Well, and from a leadership point of view, is I think inspiring people to actually be that leader to themselves and not look and think, oh my goodness, I got one of those terrible 9 leaders, but it's like, oh, I've got some agency here. I could do something about it. How will I lead myself? And they might then be a role model to people around them to actually have some positive change in their world.
Yeah, that's so fascinating, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, we have the choice. And I always think, I read somewhere, I'm going to quote it wrong, but basically the idea is if you don't like the situation, you either leave it, accept it, or try and change it. And I was thinking, the work you do very much works in that trying to change it part of it. Like, sure, you might be able to change a crappy leader or whatever, or the culture in your organization, but if you're not in a position to leave and you're choosing not to leave, then what are you going to choose to do to improve that?
You might be thinking of the quote, it's that serenity prayer, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I've always struggled with that wisdom to know the difference, because I'm very much a believer in that things can change, and the things I can change might not be about, others. Well, definitely I can't control others, but I might be able to control my attitude. I might be able to control how I think about a situation. So finding those moments to change. But because I have such a belief in the power of change and that the decisions you make to change, sometimes it can be really hard to sit back and go, yeah, this is one of those moments where I need to exercise wisdom. It's not something I can change. I can maybe influence something, or I can put something into the situation, but then I just have to go, it will be what it will be. And I did my best. I contributed what I could, and other circumstances and other people, it's now over to them and what they might do. And I just have to let it be. So I guess that's another lesson I've actually learned too. As much as you might think, well, if I just do the right things at the right moment, at the right time, it's all going to flow and happen. As there's a point where you just have to go, it is what it is. It will be what it will be. And I did my best.
Yeah, that's a really important point, because otherwise we can just keep, banging our heads against the wall, but also feeling that it's because we've not done enough. You know what I mean? Because you said we can never change someone else. And I love that you use the word influence there, because often, I mean, there is a difference between changing and influencing. And if we've influenced to the best we can, you're right. Then we just have to step back and go, well, that's what the situation is. Super fascinating. Thank you. And that book, I have not heard of that, and that sounds so interesting. I will put the links below for everyone.
Yes, very happy to share with you. And the guy, because of maybe his Quaker background, just when you read it, I just feel like there's this calm comes over just his phrasing and his wording, and it was just like almost a treat to kind of just go into it and think about it and reflect on it. And it literally is one of those squarish small books, and like I said, when I say small, it literally is small, but it's also not deep in volume, which kind of you just have a feel like you don't have to think, oh my goodness, there's another 200 pages to go, even though you might think this is good stuff. There's just something about the lightness of it that comes through that I think is in itself a message about, letting the voice speak. He literally is letting his voice speak, and how he's coming through about that notion of finding the flow and the for yourself.
That's super cool. Thank you. Well, this has been great. I really enjoyed it. And your high achiever came through. You beat the clock.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we can relax now. Sorry, but one last thing though, before you can relax, is before we go, I'd love you to let everyone know where they can find you and your work and Self Unlimited, and how they can connect.
Sure. So Self Unlimited has a website, which is www.b-selfunlimited.com. And that website's got lots of resources that people can look at with stories and articles to read. If they are wanting to be alerted to those, they can subscribe to the newsletter, and something will come out once a month. I'm not sure when you're releasing this, but it's usually the second week of the month that the newsletter comes out. So you can look for something in the second week of September. There are social media channels for Self Unlimited in LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I think I covered them all. And the people, Twitter, and people can follow those, and they can follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter. So one thing I will say is, if people are thinking, oh, I'd like to reach out and connect with her on LinkedIn, something to know, it is important that you put a personal message. Because if you just send me an invitation with no message, I'm going to hit ignore, because I really like to take a stand on this. I'm a person. Treat me like a person. And I sometimes say to people, would you walk into a room of people, run up to me, give me your business card and walk away without talking to me? No. So if you want to send a connection request, stop, take a moment, introduce yourself, put a little message in, and treat me like a human being. And then I'm very happy to accept. But yeah, you send me a connection, anybody sends me a connection request with no personal message in it, ignore is the response you're going to get.
Wow. Do you know what? That never crossed my mind. But I really, really like it, because it does make complete sense. And now thinking about that, Helen, I've actually, after I did a big event recently, I had a lot of connection requests where people wrote personal notes. And it was the first time it had ever happened. But you know what? It actually felt really, really nice. And I didn't put my finger on it at the time as to why. But I was like, I'm definitely connecting with you. You've like totally made an effort. But yeah, so that's really advice. Thank you.
Well, it's kind of funny, because you think a connection, they made a human connection with you. It did not do that. It's just a technological connection. And I kind of almost feel it's like the equivalent, I just become another notch on your networking post kind of thing. And it's like, treat me as a human. I'm a human. You want to be connecting with me as a human? Let's do it at a human level.
That's it. And particularly too, because sometimes I get random requests from people that I can't understand why they want to connect with me, but there might be something completely valid. So if you, I mean, even if you're watching this and you're like, I want to check Helen out, you can put in, like, I saw you on the show with Sam.
Absolutely. Provide the context. Yeah. And then in this world too, with the COVID, who wouldn't want some kind of nice little message or something added in? We can respond to that. Like, I heard that and it made a difference, or that this thing that you said was really interesting, or by the way, I know somebody that we have in common and, I value them. So I think anything that you can do to put a little more goodness in the world, let's do it.
Do it. I like it. I am going to join that stand with you, and I'm going to make
excellent
a message.
Well, here we go. Change made. Take.
One bite-sized piece at a time. I just couldn't resist.
Go for it.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you so much once again. And thank you everyone for watching. So if you like the conversation I had with Helen today and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe to the Using Technology Better YouTube channel. Or if you're listening to the podcast version of the show, then you can follow it on your favorite podcast platform and you'll get notified of all the new episodes. Plus, as you may know, we have the little friendly fortnightly newsletter where I write to you sharing tips about efficiency and productivity and organisation, all the things I get nerdy about. So if
and it's good stuff too.
Oh, thank you. And as is yours. So you've got two newsletters, guys, to sign up for. Thank you, Helen. So yeah, totally. There you go. You've got Helen's
endorsement
newsletter.
2 thumbs up.
You can sign up to that too. I'll pop the link below. So that is it for the show today. But I will see you again very soon for another bite-sized piece of the Learning Adventurers Lab. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.